Today we will go back in time to an empire that was shrouded in cruelty and fear, where the Assyrians ruled with severe sadistic punishments. So, let's get started. After the collapse of the Bronze Age, the Assyrian state faced a deadline. But then a king named Adad-nirari came to power, and things started to change. The Neo-Assyrian Empire emerged, led by a powerful king named Ashurnasirpal II. He was very smart and strategic, and he was able to conquer lands that had been lost, including the important city of Babylon. But before we go any further, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. But it was under the rule of Ashurnasirpal II that Assyria became a superpower. He expanded his rule over the Levant and Canaan, which made Assyria very strong. Other kings like Tiglath-Pileser III and Esarhaddon continued this expansion and even reached Syria and Egypt for a while. To achieve these conquests, the Assyrian armies became famous as the feared hosts of Azor. They were named after their god, and they showed the world the military strength and divine favor that made Assyria so great. The Assyrian army was unlike any other at that time. It had foot soldiers, archers, charioteers, and advanced siege equipment. They were the most powerful military force of their time. When they went to war, they left a trail of destruction behind them. They would defeat their enemies on the battlefield, and then brutally control the cities they conquered. Unfortunately, these conquests involved terrible acts like massacres, looting, rape, executions, and enslavement, which were common in ancient empires. But what made the Assyrians different was their special love for extremely cruel punishments. They would proudly show off their brutal methods and take pleasure in causing suffering, as seen in the monuments and inscriptions from that time. King Ashurnasirpal II and the Assyrians were very brutal and cruel. They would do terrible things to their enemies as a way to show their power. They would cut the throats of people like they were cutting the throats of lambs, and their horses would step into their blood. They would kill so many warriors that the plains would be filled with their blood like grass. One of the most common things that they would do is impalement. They would put long spikes through the chests of their enemies, including soldiers and even kings, to show that they were in charge. It was a very gruesome and scary punishment, meant to frighten anyone who saw it. They also liked to mutilate people. They would cut off their hands and feet and then impale them on stakes. They would even castrate people, which means removing their private parts, comparing it to taking out cucumber seeds. They would also cut off people's heads. This served as a punishment, but also as a way to count how many enemies they had killed. They would also count the hands of the enemies, just like the Egyptians did. It was a way for them to keep track of their victories. In 653 BC, the Assyrians defeated the Elamite king Tuman at the Eula River. But the Assyrian king Ashurnasirpal wanted to do more than just win the battle. He took Tuman's head and sent it to Ashur, where it was prominently displayed in a famous artwork that is now in the British Museum. This was a frightening symbol of the Assyrians' dominance. Flaying, which means tearing off a person's skin, was another horrible punishment used by the Assyrians. They would sometimes keep their victims alive for hours, while their skinless bodies were displayed as a horrifying warning to others, or as a way to scare potential rebels. In the city of Sais in Egypt, the Assyrians claimed to have flayed all those who fought against them and put their skins on the city walls. Burning was perhaps the most well-known punishment used by the Assyrians. In the Mesopotamian world, it was believed that burning someone would prevent them from having an afterlife. This made it an especially cruel way to die. Throughout Assyrian history, kings proudly claimed to have burned their enemies alive, subjecting them to an exceptionally horrible fate. Ashurnasirpal II, one of the Assyrian kings, was known for his extreme brutality. In the city of Tellur, he committed horrifying acts, such as burning captives, including children. He claimed to have burned children on multiple occasions, especially those from groups that the Assyrians considered uncivilized or rebels. Some scholars suggest that there may have been religious reasons behind these acts, as inscriptions hint at the children being burned as offerings. Regardless of the motive, the sheer brutality of these acts is remembered throughout history. Even the dead were not spared from punishment. There are depictions showing captives being forced to grind the bones of their own relatives. This was done to deny the deceased an afterlife before the captives themselves were executed. After the conquest of Susa in 647 BC, Ashurnasirpal desecrated the tomb of the ancient Elamite kings by taking their bodies back to Assyria, denying them eternal rest in their homeland. The atrocities committed by the Assyrian Empire are undeniable, ranging from burning children to the flaying of kings. However, amidst the horror, there were moments of mercy. For example, Tiglath-Pileser I spared the king of Dayanu, a small Anatolian kingdom, under the condition of obedience to Assyrian authority and recognition of the power of the god Ashur. It didn't matter what ethnicity someone belonged to. Anyone who submitted to Assyrian rule, whether Egyptian, Syrian, Canaanite, or others, could expect fair treatment. In the Assyrian Empire, all were considered part of their ranks. Once absorbed into the Assyrian Empire, legal distinctions based on nationality faded away. However, this did not spare individuals from the brutal punishments that accompanied Assyrian justice. While societal hierarchies placed slaves beneath free citizens and women beneath men, this pattern was not unique to the Assyrians, but prevalent in societies of that era. Under Assyrian law, equality meant that everyone faced severe consequences for their crimes. Thieves could expect mutilation or death, while runaway slaves were dealt with firmly. The Code of Asher, dating back to the 11th century BC, detailed many of these punishments. Notably, one clause addressed a woman injuring a man's testicle. For a first offense, a woman would have a finger severed. If she repeated the offense, her eyes would be gouged out. Gender-specific brutality was also evident in cases related to abortion. Termed a terrible crime, inducing a miscarriage was met with severe consequences. Women found guilty would be impaled, their bodies denied a proper burial. Even if a woman died while attempting to abort her child, her body would still be impaled and left to decay. Clearly, brutality permeated the lives of anyone, Assyrian or not, who dared defy the law. The brutal Assyrian Empire faced numerous rebellions and responded with cruel punishments. Forced resettlements and mass deportations dispersed potential rebels, while inflicting monstrous cruelty discouraged further uprisings. Rebelling against the Assyrians meant defying the gods themselves, justifying severe consequences. In 882 BC, a significant rebellion erupted in the region of Halzalua, led by ethnic Assyrians. This rare defiance deeply insulted King Ashurnasir-pal II, who considered it a sign of corruption. In response, he brutally suppressed the rebellion, ordering the burning of the fortified city of Kinabu, including women and children. This demonstrated Assyria's unwavering authority and willingness to eradicate resistance. Babylon, another frequent source of defiance, endured centuries of subjugation under the Neo-Assyrian Empire. Throughout history, Babylon made several attempts to break free from Assyrian rule. In 689 BC, under the leadership of Moses Marduk, Babylon allied with the Elamite kingdom and rebelled against Syria. However, the Assyrians, led by Sennacherib, besieged the city for 9 months, resulting in a brutal massacre. Temple destruction and devastation caused by diverting the Euphrates River into Babylon. While the fate of Moses Marduk remains unclear, it took years to rebuild the city. In the 660s and 650s BC, Babylon once again became a focal point of revolt. The Assyrian king Sennacherib appointed his eldest son Shamashin as a client king of Babylon, while his younger son Ashurbanipal, upon ascending the throne, laid siege to Babylon for 2 years, ultimately bringing it back under Assyrian control. The Assyrians' brutal actions extended to their treatment of the dead, as described by Ashurbanipal himself. The bodies of dead Babylonians were carved up and fed to various animals, including dogs, pigs, wolves, eagles, birds, and fish. The exact details of Shamashin's death remain uncertain, but fire is often mentioned as a means of his demise. The Assyrians' reputation for cruelty is evident in biblical accounts, which are supported by historical evidence. The Assyrian conquests and the relocation of the 10 lost tribes of Israel highlight their actions. The fate of the lost tribes remains a subject of interest and has sparked claims of dissent from different groups. The Assyrians' dispersal of the lost tribes solidified their opposition to Judaism and other Abrahamic religions. In 702 BC, Sennacherib's campaign against King Hezekiah of Judah, including brutal acts in conquered cities. Lachish was nearly emptied, with its citizens deported, and depictions in the British Museum show its leaders being flayed. Jerusalem, however, was spared, likely due to Hezekiah's tribute offer and the Assyrians' limited benefit from besieging the city. While the Bible attributes to the withdrawal of Assyrian forces to an angel's intervention, resulting in the death of 185,000 soldiers, it is more likely that Sennacherib withdrew due to the favorable terms offered by Hezekiah. The Assyrians played a significant role in shaping Jewish and national identities. While the Bible portrays them as adversaries, non-biblical sources suggest their brutality may not have been unique. Historians continue to debate whether the Assyrians were truly more brutal or simply more transparent about their actions compared to other empires throughout history. With that said, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more. See you in the next video. Till then, take care.